We need more innovation, not more barriers. All this is just theater. Evan's words lingered in the meeting room like a persistent echo. My name is Amit Sharma, 42 years old, head of cybersecurity infrastructure at Meridian Systems in Austin, Texas. For 11 years, I constructed and safeguarded the security framework protecting healthcare data for over 250 medical institutions. I'd worked under 5 different chief technology officers. Evan Blackwell was the 6th. And after merely 3 weeks, he'd already concluded I was the obstacle to progress. These safeguards are antiquated, he continued, leafing through my monthly security assessment with obvious disdain. We're sacrificing deployment speed. Our industry rivals are launching updates 3 times faster. I maintain my composure, keeping my voice steady. Those same rivals have experienced significant data breaches in the past 18 months. Everyone experiences breaches eventually, Evan dismissed with a careless wave. The real metric is recovery speed, not prevention capability. The 7 other department heads around the table nodded in unison. Nobody wanted to challenge the new executive's perspective. Nobody except me. Our healthcare clients specifically trust us because we've maintained 0 breaches, I countered. The medical sector has unique regulatory requirements compared to. Compared to what? Evan's smile was practiced but cold. Google? Microsoft? Kaiser Permanente? I'm intimately familiar with healthcare data security regulations, Amit. What he failed to comprehend was that our infrastructure wasn't conventional. I had developed proprietary security layers after the board repeatedly declined to invest in enterprise-level solutions. Custom intrusion detection systems, specialized encryption protocols, a bespoke authentication framework, all thoroughly functional but documented minimally because they consistently refused to allocate resources for proper knowledge transfer. I'd appreciate the opportunity to explain why these systems are uniquely A. We simply don't have bandwidth for that today, Evan interrupted, closing his laptop with finality. Everyone stretched thin preparing for the new patient portal launch. We'll revisit security protocols afterward. Rachel from product design approached me in the hallway afterward. Are you all right? That seemed particularly harsh. I'm fine, I replied, though I wasn't. Evan's just trying to establish his authority, she said. Give him time to adjust. But 3 days later, I discovered my access to the security monitoring servers had been restricted. When I inquired, technical support informed me it reflected a new procedural directive from the CTO's office. Security event logs were being consolidated into the general IT monitoring platform, a system I had repeatedly identified as insufficient for sophisticated forensic analysis. That evening, I backed up my documentation and security implementation notes to my personal drive. Not corporate data, just my methodologies, processes, and architectural diagrams. Something told me these materials might prove necessary sooner than I expected. The following morning, my security dashboard highlighted 4 unusual authentication attempts flagged by my custom monitoring tool. Nobody else appeared to notice. I joined Meridian after 7 years at a federal healthcare agency. Back then, Meridian was an ambitious startup with passionate founders and more vision than capital. I was employee number 31. Now we employed over 350 people across 3 office locations. My mother had questioned my decision to leave my stable government position for a startup in this economic climate, but I believed in Meridian's mission. Secure healthcare information management before digital health became an industry buzzword. I had accepted a lower salary in exchange for equity options. That investment would prove valuable if we succeeded. And we did succeed. For years, I worked 70-hour weeks constructing our security architecture while other department leaders competed for budget allocations and additional staff. I accomplished more with fewer resources, developing custom solutions when commercial products were unaffordable. The recurring compromise remained consistent. I would build the systems myself, but there was never time allocated to properly document or train others. That creates a significant dependency risk, our previous CTO, Sophia, had cautioned. What happens if you're unavailable during an emergency? Then whoever takes over had better be skilled at deciphering my code comments, I had joked. Sophia understood the technical compromises we were accumulating, but she shielded me from the board's relentless pressure for accelerated releases and additional features. We had established an effective rhythm. I would identify potential vulnerabilities, she would translate them into business impact assessments, and together we'd find balanced solutions that maintained our robust security posture. Then last quarter, Meridian was acquired by Pinnacle Healthcare Solutions. Sophia was replaced by Evan, whose mandate appeared unambiguous: expedite growth, optimize workflows, and unlock untapped potential, as he phrased it during his company-wide introduction. Within 6 weeks, I observed the transformations. Security reviews were abbreviated to accommodate more aggressive release schedules. Penetration tests were postponed, then substantially reduced in scope. My team's requests for security upgrades were consistently deprioritized. Rachel confided in me during lunch in the courtyard. They're pushing our development capacity beyond sustainable limits. Quality assurance is being compressed to meet arbitrary deadlines. What about regulatory compliance standards? I asked. We can't compromise those requirements. She shrugged. Evan says we're reinterpreting the implementation guidelines. His exact words, not mine. That evening, my direct report, Miguel, visited my office. Something concerning, he said quietly. I was questioned extensively about our firewall update protocols. Evan wants to understand why security changes require such lengthy implementation periods. Did you explain our testing requirements and validation process? I tried, but he kept inquiring about potential shortcuts we might implement for urgent situations. After Miguel departed, I stared at my monitor, troubled. 11 years of meticulous work, and now they were seeking convenient workarounds. I could sense everything beginning to unravel. The calendar invitation arrived Tuesday morning. Security Operations Restructuring Discussion, Amit Sharma, Evan Blackwell, Conference Room D, 3 p.m. I spent the morning reviewing my security dashboards one final time. Everything functioned precisely as designed. The custom alert system I developed was monitoring for unusual access patterns. The isolation between patient data repositories remained intact. The backup verification protocols all displayed green status indicators. At 3 p.m. sharp, I entered Conference Room D. Evan was already seated with Kimberly from Human Resources. Amit, please have a seat. His tone was professional but detached. I'll be direct. We're restructuring our security operations approach, transitioning to a distributed responsibility model. I remained silent. Kimberly's presence communicated everything I needed to know. Your position as centralized security architect is being eliminated, he continued. We're embedding security functions within each product team, who will coordinate through a cloud-based framework. Who will maintain the core security infrastructure? I asked. We're migrating to industry-standard cloud security tools with managed service providers, Evan explained. More scalable, less dependent on institutional knowledge concentration. Institutional knowledge concentration. My 11 years building custom solutions to protect patient data reduced to a corporate risk factor. Kimberly slid a folder across the table. This outlines your severance package. 3 months' salary, continued healthcare benefits, and accelerated vesting of your equity following the acquisition. I opened the folder, scanning the figures. The terms were fair, even generous. This decision had clearly been authorized at levels above Evan's position. He was merely executing the predetermined plan. We'll need your access credentials and company devices before you leave today, Evan added. Miguel will handle knowledge transfer over the next 2 weeks. You don't need to be physically present, but please remain available by phone. Miguel doesn't understand the entire security architecture, I said. Nobody does except me. Evan's expression hardened slightly. Everything is documented, Amit. We've reviewed your documentation repositories. Documented, yes, but understanding the documentation required contextual knowledge I'd never had sufficient time to provide. The board had repeatedly rejected my request for a proper knowledge transfer initiative. Accelerate now, optimize later had been their consistent refrain for years. I understand, I said, closing the folder. I wrote down my authentication credentials on a notepad: domain administrator, VPN access, security console, monitoring systems. 11 years protecting this company's data reduced to 7 sets of login credentials. Evan nodded as I slid the notepad across the table. I recognize organizational change is challenging, but this represents the appropriate direction for the company. I surrendered my access card and stood up. I sincerely hope that proves accurate. Walking through the lobby, I passed the wall of framed awards and press mentions. Meridian Systems, most secure healthcare data platform, for consecutive years. My work, my legacy. I didn't feel anger, just a hollow certainty that they had made a catastrophic error, not in terminating my employment, but in fundamentally misunderstanding what they were dismantling. In my car, I switched off my company phone and drove to Lady Bird Lake. I sat watching kayakers for nearly 2 hours, calculating how long before the first security incident would emerge. Not if, but when. 3 days later, my prediction materialized even faster than I had anticipated. My personal phone illuminated with urgent texts from Miguel, systems behaving erratically, multiple security alerts triggering. Can you call? I stared at the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to allow Evan to discover firsthand the consequences of dismantling security infrastructure he didn't comprehend. But 11 years of professional responsibility prevailed. I called Miguel. Thank goodness, he answered breathlessly. We're detecting unusual traffic patterns on the Northern Gateway. The monitoring system is flagging it, but nobody knows how to respond appropriately. What's Evan's assessment? I asked. He's in strategic planning meetings with Pinnacle executives all day. The IT team believes it's probably just a false positive from the automated rule updates. Automated rule updates that I had designed to adapt to emerging threat patterns. If they were triggering alerts, something was genuinely concerning. Has anyone checked the secondary verification logs? I asked. Silence. The what? I closed my eyes in frustration. Miguel, there's a secondary validation system that confirms alert patterns before escalating notifications. If both systems are triggering simultaneously, it's definitely not a false positive. Where would I find that? I guided him through accessing the hidden dashboard. Those credentials weren't included in my handover notes because it was a system I'd built during a weekend coding session 3 years earlier. It had intercepted 3 potential breaches since implementation. Oh no, Miguel whispered. Both systems are showing critical alerts across multiple sectors. You need to isolate the Northern Gateway immediately, I instructed. Disable the external connection and activate the failover circuit. I don't have that authorization level, Miguel replied anxiously. Nobody assigned me the administrative rights to network infrastructure. Of course they hadn't. In their haste to remove me, they'd neglected to transfer the full scope of my access permissions. You need to contact Evan or someone from senior infrastructure immediately, I said. I'll try. Can you possibly come in just to help navigate this situation? I hesitated. That's not my responsibility anymore, Miguel. Please, Amit. I don't understand how to manage this. Part of me wanted to help. The other part recognized the professional boundaries. Contact Evan. Communicate exactly what I've told you. I'll be available if he wishes to contact me directly. 4 hours later, Evan called. Amit, his voice was tense. We're experiencing some security anomalies. Miguel believes it's serious, though our standard monitoring doesn't indicate significant concerns. That's because the standard monitoring wasn't designed to detect sophisticated intrusion attempts. I constructed a separate system specifically for that purpose. What exactly do you want from me, Evan? He cleared his throat. We could benefit from your insight. Perhaps a remote consultation? You want me to consult on the security system you recently deemed unnecessary? No one claimed security was unnecessary, he replied defensively. We're simply restructuring its implementation approach. How effectively is that restructuring working currently? The line went quiet momentarily. We're prepared to offer your standard consulting rate for assistance. I smiled grimly. My consulting rate is $950 per hour with a 10-hour minimum paid up front, plus a signed agreement acknowledging I bear no liability for outcomes. I expected him to refuse. Instead, he simply stated, I'll have the paperwork prepared immediately. How soon can you begin? I can't, I replied. I've accepted another position. The non-compete clause in my severance agreement prevents me from accessing your systems now that I'm joining a healthcare security firm. This was untrue. I hadn't accepted another position yet, and the non-compete had explicit exemptions for consulting services. But Evan wasn't aware of those details. Amit, this is extremely serious. Yes, I agreed. It certainly is. I ended the call and switched off my phone again. Whatever crisis was unfolding at Meridian, it was no longer my responsibility. They had made their choice. The following morning, I checked technology news websites habitually. Nothing about Meridian yet, but by mid-afternoon, the first headline appeared on a cybersecurity blog. Healthcare data firm Meridian Systems investigating potential security incident. My phone showed 9 missed calls from various Meridian numbers, 4 from Evan, 3 from Miguel, 1 from Rachel, and 1 from an unfamiliar number. I listened to the voicemails. Evan, Amit, we need to speak urgently. The situation has escalated significantly. Please return my call immediately. Miguel, it's critical. Someone has penetrated our systems and we can't isolate them. Please call. The final voicemail was from Daniel Wright, Meridian CEO. Amit, this is Daniel. Whatever transpired between you and Evan is secondary now. We desperately need your assistance. Our patient's data is vulnerable. Please contact me directly. I sat at my dining table, coffee growing cold. 11 years building a comprehensive security system, and it had taken less than 96 hours for it to be compromised after my departure. Not because the system was flawed, but because no one understood how to properly maintain it. I called Daniel. Thank goodness, he answered immediately. Amit, we're facing a critical situation. I've been informed, I replied calmly. What specifically is happening? Someone has breached our perimeter defenses somehow. They appear to be moving between patient databases, but our team can't determine how they're bypassing controls. The internal isolation system, I stated. My custom-built data segregation architecture that prevented lateral movement between patient repositories. It was designed to automatically quarantine if it detected unauthorized access patterns. Has the automatic quarantine activated? I asked. Silence. What quarantine? The automatic quarantine protocol. I closed my eyes in frustration. Daniel, there's an emergency isolation system built into the segmentation controls. If unauthorized movement is detected, it should automatically isolate each patient database. No one has mentioned any quarantine system. One moment. I heard muffled conversation, then Daniel returned. Evan says there's nothing in the architecture documentation about an automatic quarantine. Because the board had repeatedly slashed my requests to properly document the emergency security systems, temporary technical solutions, they'd called them when approving minimal budget. We'll properly resource documentation later. Later never materialized. The system exists, I said firmly. I implemented it 3 years ago after the Memorial Healthcare incident. Check the minutes from the emergency board meeting in October. More muffled discussion. Then Evan's voice came on the line. Amit, where exactly is this quarantine system? We can't locate it in any of the infrastructure diagrams. It's not in the standard diagrams because it was implemented as an emergency measure during the security incident 3 years ago. The board approved it as a temporary solution that became permanent. Review the minutes from the emergency board meeting in October. Another pause. We're searching. Yes, here it is. Approved emergency security measures as proposed by Sharma. But there are no technical specifications. There were no technical specifications because the board didn't want technical details. They wanted the problem solved immediately. I could almost hear Evan's frustration through the phone. Can you simply tell us how to activate it? It should activate automatically. If it hasn't, something has been modified in the configuration. Nothing has been changed, Evan insisted. I considered for a moment. Check the scheduled tasks on the security management server. There's a verification job that runs every 4 hours to confirm the quarantine system remains operational. A few minutes of silence, then the task exists, but it's currently disabled. Who disabled it? I asked, already knowing the answer. Evan's voice was subdued. It was disabled during the security restructuring. We consolidated scheduled tasks to reduce system overhead. They had systematically dismantled my security framework piece by piece, not understanding how the components function together. Now they confronted the consequences. While Meridian's crisis unfolded, I received a LinkedIn message from Natasha Reynolds, Chief Security Officer at Guardian Health Defense. Heard you might be available. We should connect. Guardian was among the premier healthcare security firms nationally. I had followed their research for years and respected their methodologies. The timing of the message seemed almost providential. We arranged coffee that afternoon at a quiet cafe near the university campus. Natasha was refreshingly straightforward. Information circulates quickly in healthcare security circles. Meridian's situation is unfortunate. I sipped my coffee. I'm not privy to the details. I'm no longer affiliated with the company. She nodded. Understood. But I'm familiar with your professional reputation. 11 years without a successful breach. That's remarkable. Until now, I noted. From what I've gathered, the breach occurred after significant modifications to your security architecture. Changes you didn't implement. I didn't inquire how she possessed that information. The healthcare security community was relatively small, and developments traveled rapidly. We're expanding our provider security practice, she continued. We need someone who understands the unique challenges of healthcare data protection. Someone who has constructed custom solutions and knows how to manage complex security infrastructures. The job offer was generous, nearly double my Meridian salary plus equity, with a team of 6 security engineers reporting to me. The stipulation? I needed to start immediately. I should mention that my severance includes a non-compete clause, I said. Natasha smiled. Our legal department has reviewed standard Meridian severance agreements. The non-compete exclusively applies to direct competitors in healthcare data services, not security consulting firms. We aren't competing with Meridian. We would potentially provide services to them. That evening, while reviewing Guardian's offer letter, my phone rang again. Meridian's main switchboard number. Hello, Amit. It's Rachel. Have you seen the news? I hadn't. I opened my laptop and checked major technology publications. The headlines were prominent now. Meridian Systems confirms major data breach, patient information compromised. Healthcare provider Meridian suffers catastrophic security failure. Meridian stock plummets 32% following confirmation of patient data breach. How severe is it? I asked. Catastrophic, Rachel replied. The attackers accessed at least 35 patient databases before we managed to completely disable external connections. The system is in complete disarray. Nobody can determine how to properly restore the security controls. What's Evan's response? Evan isn't saying anything. He's been in continuous crisis meetings with the board. They've engaged an external security firm for incident response. An external firm that would need to decipher my custom security architecture with minimal documentation and no historical context. They would eventually resolve it, but it would require time during which Meridian's reputation was being systematically destroyed. I'm truly sorry, I said, and genuinely meant it for everyone affected. It's not your responsibility, Rachel said. You tried to warn them. The next morning, I signed Guardian's offer letter. By early afternoon, I was settling into their downtown Austin office, configuring new equipment. My initial assignment: develop a post-breach recovery framework specifically for healthcare institutions. That evening, I received a final text from Daniel Wright. The board would like to discuss your return. Name your terms. I didn't respond. Some professional relationships, once severed, should remain so. Instead, I emailed Natasha my initial draft of the recovery framework. The subject line: preventing the next Meridian. 6 weeks after the breach, as I was adapting to my role at Guardian, the Wall Street Journal published an investigative piece titled, "The Unraveling of Meridian: How Prioritizing Speed Over Security Led to Disaster." The article detailed how Meridian's new leadership had methodically removed critical security controls pursuing accelerated development cycles. Internal emails obtained by the reporter revealed Evan had disabled key security mechanisms despite warnings from the IT staff. Miguel was quoted anonymously describing how my custom security architecture had been dismantled without proper understanding. The most damning revelation came from board meeting minutes. 3 years earlier, I had formally requested budget for proper documentation and knowledge transfer of the security systems. The request had been denied 4 consecutive quarters, labeled as non-essential administrative overhead. That same day, 4 of Meridian's largest healthcare clients publicly announced termination of their contracts. Their statements cited irreconcilable concerns about data security practices and loss of confidence in Meridian's security governance. I didn't need to monitor the stock price to understand what was happening. LinkedIn told the story as Meridian employees began updating their profiles en masse, signaling the exodus. Evan Blackwell updated his profile to Strategic Technology Advisor. It now displayed no company listed. His tenure at Meridian had lasted less than 4 months. At Guardian, we received inquiries from several former Meridian clients seeking security advisory services. During one call, a hospital network CIO asked if I had designed Meridian's original security architecture. Yes, I answered simply. That's precisely why we're contacting you first, he replied. I took no satisfaction in Meridian's collapse. A company I'd helped build was disintegrating, and hundreds of dedicated professionals would lose their positions. But I felt a quiet vindication that security wasn't merely overhead to be reduced. It was foundational. 8 months later, Guardian had substantially expanded its healthcare security practice. Many of our new clients were former Meridian customers, and several of my previous colleagues had joined our team. Miguel was now my senior security engineer. Rachel directed our client communications department. Meridian itself had been acquired for a fraction of its previous valuation, essentially purchased for its client relationships and technology patents. The brand name was discontinued, the security breach becoming a cautionary example in business school case studies. I encountered Daniel Wright at a healthcare technology conference in Chicago. We found ourselves alone at the hotel bar following the day's sessions. "No lingering resentment?" he asked, raising his glass. "None," I answered truthfully. "Business decisions have consequences, some more significant than others." He nodded. "For what it's worth, I oppose those changes." Was outvoted. "Understood," I said. "Your new firm appears to be thriving." "We are." Daniel finished his drink. "You know what's particularly ironic? We're now paying Guardian 4 times your former salary for security consulting." I smiled slightly. The cost of security always gets paid, either proactively or reactively. Reactively is invariably more expensive. As he departed, Daniel paused. Evan landed at Pinnacle, still advocating the same move quickly philosophy. "I wish them luck," I said sincerely. Back in Austin, I walked into Guardian's offices Monday morning to find Natasha waiting with news. Pinnacle Healthcare Solutions experienced a significant security incident over the weekend. Their chief security officer is requesting emergency assistance. "Would you like to lead this engagement?" I shook my head. "Assign the junior team. They need the experience." That afternoon, I finalized our new client onboarding documentation. Clear, comprehensive, meticulously detailed. The section title, Understanding Comprehensive Security Architecture, the Foundation of Trust. My mother had been correct about one thing: job security isn't about where you work. It's about being the person who knows how to prevent catastrophes that others don't even recognize are approaching.